What happened in London today will go down as one of the most shocking confrontations in recent British politics. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, found himself engulfed in a storm of rage and disgust as furious protesters gathered outside Downing Street, chanting one word over and over: predator. The chants cut through the cold afternoon air like knives, echoing through Whitehall, and sending shockwaves across the nation. But why? Why has this scandal, the grooming gangs scandal, become the political firestorm that threatens to consume the Labour leader's career? And is this the moment where public patience finally snaps? Before we get into the details, make sure you subscribe to Precious Updates so you never miss the stories the mainstream media buries. The scenes outside Downing Street were beyond tense. Security struggled to hold the crowd back as men and women of all ages vented their fury. Placards reading "Justice for the Victims" and "Starmer New" bobbed above the masses, and every time the Prime Minister appeared in view, the shouts grew louder. Starmer tried to maintain a stern, almost dismissive look as he walked towards his motorcade, but witnesses say his jaw tightened and his pace quickened when the word predator was hurled at him again and again. This wasn't just any protest. This was the culmination of years of anger over allegations that the political establishment, and specifically Starmer himself, turned a blind eye to the systematic abuse of young girls by grooming gangs in towns across Britain. While Starmer has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing from his time as Director of Public Prosecutions, his critics argue the record speaks for itself. They point to cases that were dropped, prosecutions that never happened, and victims who say they were ignored when they begged for help. And today, those victims' voices roared through the streets of London. It's impossible to ignore the symbolism here. Starmer, the man who promised to bring integrity back to government, now facing accusations of enabling one of the darkest scandals in recent British history. Imagine the optics: the Prime Minister, guarded by police, inside the secure gates of Downing Street, while outside, the public screams for justice. What does that say about the relationship between the people and the man who's supposed to lead them? And here's the part that's rattling Westminster: this isn't just a fringe movement. Polling in recent weeks shows public trust in Starmer is plunging, particularly among working-class voters in the North and Midlands, the same communities most scarred by the grooming gangs crisis. Nigel Farage has already seized on the moment, calling Starmer's record morally bankrupt and accusing Labour of betraying the very people it claims to represent. Reform UK MPs are demanding a full independent inquiry into every case that went unprosecuted during Starmer's tenure at the CPS. The government's response so far: denial and deflection. Starmer told reporters earlier today that these protests were politically motivated and designed to spread lies. But here's the thing: the anger we saw today wasn't manufactured in a Tory think tank. It came from parents, survivors, and campaigners who've been screaming into the political void for years, only to be met with silence. Is it really political to want justice for abused children? Or is that just what politicians say when they've run out of excuses? Witnesses at the protest said the moment that tipped the crowd into fury was when Starmer tried to speak over the chants during a brief press statement. As he insisted his government was doing more than ever to tackle grooming gangs, one woman shouted back, "You did nothing when you had the chance." The crowd erupted. Police moved in to create space, but the chanting only grew louder. Starmer's aides reportedly cut the statement short, ushering him back inside as the noise became deafening. There's also a growing feeling that this scandal could snowball far beyond just political damage. Legal experts have suggested that if evidence surfaces showing that deliberate decisions were made to avoid prosecutions for fear of offending community sensitivities, the fallout could be catastrophic not just for Starmer, but for Labour as a whole. Some campaigners are already threatening private prosecutions if the government doesn't act. And here's a question nobody in the mainstream press seems willing to ask: if the man leading the country is facing this level of moral outrage over his past decisions, how can he possibly command the authority to govern? Imagine being a police officer, a prosecutor, or even a civil servant, knowing the top man in government is being accused loudly and publicly of enabling the very crimes you're supposed to fight. The political class may try to brush this off, but the public mood is shifting. Social media is flooded with footage of today's confrontation clips showing Starmer's face tightening as the word predator pounds in the background. These images will be burned into the public consciousness. You can't spin away the raw emotion in those scenes. Even some within Labour are getting nervous. A senior backbencher, speaking anonymously, told a journalist this afternoon, "We can't just ride this out. If the public sees us defending the indefensible, we're finished." Those words should terrify Starmer. Once the cracks start appearing inside your own party, it's only a matter of time before the dam breaks. This scandal has all the hallmarks of a political implosion, not because of one explosive event, but because of a slow, relentless build-up of distrust. Each time Starmer dodges a question or dismisses the anger as political, the outrage hardens. Every day he refuses to call for a new inquiry, the suspicion grows. The question now is not whether this will damage his leadership, it's whether it will end it entirely. And let's not forget, general elections are never far away in British politics. Opposition parties can smell blood, and if public fury continues to boil like it did today, they will hammer this issue relentlessly. Imagine the campaign ads, grainy protest footage, victims telling their stories, the word predator in bold letters and Starmer's face in the background. That's not just political theatre. That's electoral death. So here we are, a prime minister under siege, a public that's had enough, and a scandal that refuses to die. The grooming gangs issue has haunted Britain for years, but now it's colliding head-on with the country's most powerful political figure. Whether Starmer weathers the storm or is swept away by it will depend on what happens in the coming weeks. Will he finally face the truth, or will he keep pretending this is all a political game? This is Precious Update. Subscribe now, because the truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth knowing.